You got a bit?
I don't even have a can to crack.
Guys, we're trying to record, but we don't have any monsters, and I just don't know if we could do this today. I'm sorry, we're just gonna have to call it here. I mean, that's it. I mean, I know that the duration of this video is probably like an hour long, and you're sitting down and you clicked it, but after this, it's just black. I'm just cutting it off. We don't have monsters. I'm just phoning it in. This is the end of the video. We don't have monsters.
Bye.
I don't know what else. I don't know what to do. Hope's gone. I'm all alone.
Psych! Oh, that was really close to the microphone. Sorry. If you were wearing headphones, I apologize. Welcome to Vic and Hope!
You definitely waited until I was sipping the water and then you started up.
It's called Comedy Sweaty. Look it up.
Jeez, stop being so fucking funny all the time.
It's 2020. Girls are allowed to be funny. Brie Larson is president.
So, we just, over the course of 2 or 3 weeks...
Probably 2 or 3 weeks, yeah.
We caught up on Young Justice.
Young Justice.
It just dropped on HBO Max, like, the day we started watching it 2 or 3 weeks ago. Pretty exciting, because they had DC original stuff on there, but they mostly just had a bunch of movies that I don't care to watch, because they're from the last 10 to 20 years, and I haven't heard a lot of good about the movies of the last 10 years, so I haven't checked those out. Anyways, this is not about that. This is about Young Justice on HBO Max. HBO Max, pretty exciting lineup for my personal interest.
Pretty good.
So, Young Justice, if you don't know, was a show that, when did it air? Like 2014?
It was like
2010. Yeah, 2010.
Because it was right when I was getting back into animation at the end of high school.
I was like, because I remember being like senior year around there, or maybe it was my first year of college. But, so we were into it. I think you and Marcus were really into it.
were way more into it.
You guys were way into it. Well, because for me, it's something I would have been into, but because it became like an inside joke thing with the two of you, it always makes it like I feel like I'm not allowed to be into it now because you guys have all the inside jokes, and I'm not going to be welcome into that. So I'll just like, all right, well, it's good, but it's nothing to obsess over, Even though I did like it before. I'm not sure if I saw all of season 2. Like, rewatching it, I thought I
remember a lot of stuff from season 2.
Yeah, I think I joined in, like, somewhere in season 1, not really knowing where I was joining in, and I remember a lot of season 1, but season 2 I didn't really remember beyond the first couple episodes. I feel like maybe it was a thing where we all watched it when it was on season 1, and then season 2 started. I probably watched the beginning of season 2, and then you guys probably watched the rest, and I just dropped off. Because I remember being, like, feeling really disappointed in like the character shift when it went to the new team, even though they don't really continue that. But we're getting too far ahead of ourselves talking about any of that.
Putting the horse behind the cart in front of the horse.
Yeah. So, anyways, this ran for 2 years, and then it was canceled abruptly in the middle of season 2. Well, towards the end of season 2.
Right.
So season 2 has like a classic rush ending, like the end of Ninja Turtles.
At the time there was that DC block on Saturday mornings on Cartoon Network, and about the same time that Green Lantern show got canceled, this got canceled.
I didn't even know that was a show on Cartoon Network.
Yeah, it was on their DC block, that CG Green Lantern show. And the reason both of those shows got canceled is because it wasn't performing as well with male children, and it was performing really well with teenage girls.
Yeah.
And Cartoon Network was like, well, teenage girls aren't going to go buy action figures at Walmart, and so they canceled the show.
And think about, like, 2010, 2011 is, like, peak Tumblr girl time. Like, this was a big Tumblr show.
This show was pretty big on Tumblr, as was Green Lantern. That's the only reason I knew about Green Lantern, was because people on Tumblr would talk about it.
Exactly. This is like height of Tumblr girl fandom, pre My Little Pony, I think. Maybe like right at the beginning of My Little Pony.
It could have been just as MLP was starting up.
Yeah, so this was a big confusing time for cartoon producers, probably, because younger audiences aren't getting into the cartoons as much because they're not watching TV anymore, while teenage and young adult audiences are all these fangirls on Tumblr who will never pay for anything and are watching it all illegally anyway.
Well, they're not making merchandise that's marketable to teenage girls. They're marketed towards little boys.
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously a 16-year-old girl's not gonna go buy a fucking Nightwing action figure most of the time. So, of course, they weren't selling the merchandise that they wanted to sell, and all of these shows are always based around selling merchandise, always, even now.
You know, you gotta remember that, like, a cartoon is a commissioned work of art to sell a product, you know? The quality of the cartoon doesn't matter in the eyes of the producers. What matters is the profits, because, like, that's, like, television from the beginning was created by advertisers to sell products. Like, that's the goal of it, which is why it's an inherently flawed method for creating meaningful art, because it's like, it's created to sell something that is not representative of what the art is, you know?
I mean, that's one of the reasons that, like, HBO was such a game changer. Because for HBO, like, they did kind of prioritize the art over, is it marketable?
And that's the nice thing about streaming in general, is that you're paying for an art product directly for that. You're not paying for... you're not paying into a service that relies on advertisers. Like, TV is like, they rely on playing ads in the show. If the show's not performing enough numbers, not enough people are seeing the ads, the advertisers don't want to pay for it anymore, it gets cut. Like, that's just how it works, because that's the only way they could get... you're not paying for the show, so there's no way for them to get any money off of it if there's not these incentives. And so the show was revived last year, I think.
I think they actually announced that season 3 was going to be made in, like, 2017 or 2018
I remember being
at
older,
Comic-Con.
It looked like
but it didn't come out until 2019.
Yeah, it didn't come out till last year. So there was a big gap, like an 8-year gap between the end of season 2 and the start of season 3. For it to fall
out of the zeitgeist and for no one but Tumblrinas to remember it.
And they made a poor choice with it, because DC has their app, which is like this. You're appealing to the niche of the niche with a DC Prime app, where it's like you get DC Comics and you get their DC original series, which no one has seen and no one has talked about.
The live-action DC original series are trash.
So it's like it's not worth it for just Young Justice to check out the DC app.
I'm not gonna pay $14 a month just to watch Young Justice. Sorry.
So I imagine season 3 probably vastly underperformed on their shitty DC app.
But they have already started on season 4.
Yeah, which is good. But that's probably what prompted them to put it on HBO Max, because now it's like, it's such a great platform for DC to put their shit so that people actually fucking see it, which is great. Yeah. And if you don't know, like, HBO is owned by Warner Brothers, who owns DC Cartoons and Cartoon Network and all that. So that's why it's all consolidated on HBO Max, because they're owned by the same company. They just finally created their app to have all of these things together, which is a great idea.
The DC app is gone now. That subscription service, I believe, is gone.
Oh, I didn't know it was gone.
I think it's gone.
Interesting.
I think it failed.
Well, that's great, because now we get Harley Quinn and Young Justice on HBO Max. We can actually see these things. You want to pause?
It's my dad.
The great thing about a subscription service based platform is that it doesn't matter how many toys Young Justice sells, as long as it's getting people
on your subscription service.
As long as you're getting on the subscription service,
this
the
is
HBO
a model that caters much better to the audience that's going to like Young Justice anyway.
Exactly, because it's a young adult audience.
Yeah, they're not going to go out and buy your toys.
Even though with the latest season, I think it's a little debatable and questionable to me, like, who the audience of this should be. But we'll get into it, because I don't want to talk about season 3 until we've given our initial impressions of the whole thing. But anyways, yeah. So how do you feel about Young Justice now that we're watching it and we're 27 years old?
And I'm 28, but
28.
I mean, obviously, I loved the first 2 seasons of Young Justice when I was fresh out of high school. And those first 2 seasons, they really hold up.
Yeah,
they fucking hold up, man.
They're pretty
Watching
fucking good.
them as an adult, I was right back in that place where I was like, oh yeah, I love these guys. And this is a lot of fun. And I'm having a really good time.
It's like the perfect ideal execution to me of, like, this is probably the best that a DC cartoon could be. And like, it's kind of a great execution of a teen drama.
It is the best way you could possibly make a soap opera.
Yeah.
That's definitely how I see it. Because it has all the tropes of a soap opera.
Yeah.
The romantic relationships and all the convoluted fucking emotional bullshit. But it's not in a way where you're like, it's not
And it does
draining.
a good job because, like, probably the most interesting thing about this show, and the reason it can be so enjoyable, is that it has a strong sort of central cast that are sort of the overarching main characters, quote unquote, because there's a shitload of characters in this show.
Yeah.
Which is one of the defining characteristics.
The ensemble cast in this becomes insane.
Yeah, it's sprawling. Because, so, basic idea of what the plot is, like, season 1 starts off, they create the Young Justice team, and it's supposed to be like a covert op team that works under the Justice League to train them up to join the Justice League, because in the Justice League, you're a public figure, and supervillains are going to know who you are, and they're going to want to murder you all the time. Yeah. So they
Which, I mean, is a really good idea. You know, exactly. Theoretically protecting young superheroes, letting them figure things out and grow without being in the spotlight is an excellent plan.
Because there is a question of, like, you know, should they be even on the like, they're still doing crazy fucking life-threatening shit.
Yeah,
but the idea
they can either do that under the supervision of the League, or they can do that shit by themselves. So it's better to have a mentor.
It's that they're going to do it on their own anyways, and that it keeps them out of the public eye, sort of, in terms of, like, scrutinizing them and...
Right, because they're not vigilantes in that way.
And sort of letting them cultivate their secret identities and stuff like that, where, like, they kind of don't really have secret identities.
Because they literally are, like, ranging from like 13 to 16. Yeah. So they're kids.
Yeah. So they have the young squad of boys. And so you establish that at the beginning of season 1, and you meet your central characters, which are you got Kid Flash, Speedy, who is Red Arrow's protege. You got Superboy, McGann, the Martian Man Girl. That's McGann. Those aren't two separate characters. It's McGann, the Martian Man Girl.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you have Artemis, who's another archer who comes in a little bit later.
Because you can never have too many boat people.
And then who's the last? Aqualad.
Yeah,
Aqualad.
And
so
Robin.
That's like, and Robin. So you got your main 6 or 7.
Yeah. Those are your two primary boys.
Like, your primary cast starting off is 7 characters.
Which is a lot.
And it just expands and expands and expands after that, which is awesome. And it creates a lot of interesting situations.
Oh, and Aqualad.
I already said Aqualad.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I said Aqualad.
Okay, I'm losing my mind.
Aqualad is one of my favorite characters for sure. But
Aqualad's a great character.
Season 1 builds on this central cast really well. And it's almost like the most enjoyable in terms of like it's a very like episodic at the beginning, and it lets you it has a lot of character development.
Characters.
Yeah. And it's like season 2 and 3 really miss out on a lot of the character development. They have some fucking great stuff in them.
Yeah.
But like season 1 is all about like this central cast developing their characters so that it kind of can explode from there, I guess. But
because that's your emotional anchor through the rest of the show, is that you can always come back to these characters,
and they're the ones you give a shit about the most.
A billion others.
And so going forward in seasons, they introduce, because the story spans the course right now of like 8 years. From season 1 to season 3, there's always a big time skip. So the characters age up and take on different roles, which is really interesting to be able to see.
It's a very interesting and like unique dynamic for superhero media, for sure.
And then they keep adding younger characters to the Young Justice team, and so we get to learn a whole new 7 characters every season, and also all these auxiliary characters.
It's an interesting dynamic, because then you see those characters who started out at the bottom and how they handle that when they become the mentors.
Exactly. And it's great. And the best part of it is that, like, at the start of season 2, you start to go like, oh, are the characters from season 1 going to take a back seat, and then we'll just follow this new cast of kids? But they don't. They focus on them a little bit, but then they really get back to the central cast, and it's about them. And, like, some of the new kids don't even get developed at all. No. Like, they're total throwaways. So I like that about it, that it focuses in on the main characters, even though it can introduce all these other characters to be different players and add different aspects to the season, so it doesn't get stale with the same cast.
There's so many different kinds of dynamics going on that you don't ever get tired of one kind of.
And it's like at the end of season 1, like all of their teen development arcs are resolved. Like like there's more stuff for them to learn later on, but for the most part, like season 1 to me focused on a theme of like identity, of figuring out who they are. They have these conflicts where there's one episode where everything gets thrown into chaos when they're inside McGann's mind doing a simulated test, and like one of the characters dies and it throws them into a state where they don't remember that they're in a simulation, and all this crazy shit happens, and they all have to confront like their weaknesses, and they sit down with Black Canary, who's like a therapist, and she talks them through it, and it's all their weaknesses have to do with like their identity and their personal struggles and their past and stuff like that. So like season 1, they're working through all of that, and then they're done working through that in season 2. So you have to introduce a lot more stuff because there's a 5-year time skip, and characters are older, and like and so it becomes a lot more plot centric from there on. I didn't actually say yet like
what
my recommendation of Young Justice, because I do really enjoy it. Season 1 and 2 are really strong.
Yeah.
Very fun time.
Definitely.
Season 3
is a mixed bag.
It starts off really, really weak, and it gets much better as it goes along.
Do we want to, like, get into it?
I want to get into it. I just want to give an overall impression before I get into it. Because, like, I want to say, like, you know, we'll get into spoiler talk, and I think talking season 3 is inherently spoiler talk. But,
definitely.
Like, I do think this is a show that you should check out if you're into, like, if you're at all into DC cartoons. Absolutely, this is a must watch. If you're into DC Universe, anything, like, you gotta watch this. This is fucking great. It uses so many characters, so many, like, niche characters that it draws in.
Yeah.
Like, you can tell it really tries to send away the most prominent characters and try to take in, like, Red Tornado. There's a whole plot in season 1 about Red Tornado, and it's like they try to find the most obscure guys. One of the main bad guys is Sportsmaster. They're taking villains that no one gives a fuck about and developing them. Like, the sort of big bad overarching villain is like Vandal Savage, and I had to like look up. I'm like, who's Vandal Savage again? Like, I remember him in the Justice League cartoon, but like he was not important, you know. Justice League was about like Brainiac was the big bad, you know. That was like the overarching build to this, and like Lex Luthor is there a lot because he has to be there.
He's always like in the shadows doing shit.
Yeah. But it's just like the way they'll focus on these villains that I haven't seen any of the other cartoons really pull in and make important. And like season 2 is all about Blue Beetle and that origin story and all those characters. And it's like they took this character that has gotten no attention in these cartoons and just went like, let's just go in on all of this shit about him. Season 3 does this again to a less impressive
payoff, results.
But like they'll just be like, let's take this obscure concept in our universe and just like run with it. And then you go like, I don't know how accurate any of this is to what happens in comic books, but it really has its own universe. Which I meant to mention because like I've always been a fan of the Justice League cartoons. I watched them as a kid, didn't love them, watched them as a teenager and loved them a lot. Particularly Justice League Unlimited is a lot of fun. Because like the Justice League cartoons do a similar thing where the original Justice League cartoon was about like the main 6 of Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman, Hot Girl, Green Lantern, and Martian Manhunter, and it's like they go on missions and it'll always be like 4 or 5 episode plot arcs where it's like, oh, this is centered around Wonder Woman's backstory, this is centered around a Superman thing, and it kind of goes in between characters and really focuses on their comic lore stuff. And then Justice League Unlimited opens it up to, like, the plot was literally the Justice League was just those guys. That was the Justice League. And then they go, now any hero could be in the Justice League. So Justice League Unlimited is like, they have a huge organization, and it'll focus on random episodes of, like, obscure people like Hawk and Dove. And there's one about this guy, Booster Gold. And there's an episode where it frames it where there's a giant battle happening with the Justice League, and it's focusing on, like, the C-tier heroes who are all, like, helping people out of burning buildings and shit. You get, like, Plastic Man and Booster Gold.
The shit power boys.
And the Booster Gold's like, oh, man, I want to be over there doing that shit. It's like, oh, we're going to help the people on the floor. So you get a lot of fun shit like that in Justice League Unlimited. And then that also, like, there's an ongoing narrative between Superman, Batman, all these animated series. They all are in the same continuity. And then Justice League Unlimited, like, closes the door on a lot of the plot arcs. Like, the end of Batman Beyond is brought into the final episode of Justice League Unlimited. It's like the whole DC Universe expanded thing. So that was always interesting. So for me, going into Young Justice, it's like, this disregards any of that canon. It's its own continuity. Like, I don't think any of the movies or any past stuff, this is its own continuity. You have to kind of take it on its own for what it does. And And it does a lot of interesting things with that because it gives you a lot of origin stories for the younger characters where, like, you see the origin of Beast Boy in season 1 and he becomes a main character through season 2 and 3, and you get the origin of Cyborg and the origin of all these guys that that they incorporate in a new way and give them, like, kind of a new story.
Yeah, they put
which is really, really cool.
which is nice.
So all that to say, if you're into those Justice League cartoons, this is a great Justice League cartoon, you know?
I mean, but on the other side of that coin, I casually watched Justice League growing up. Like, if it was on Saturday night and I was already on Cartoon Network, I would watch it. I was never that invested in it.
Yeah.
I was never that invested in superheroes.
It was more boring.
Watching Young Justice in high school, I knew nothing of any of these. I mean, aside from the ones that, Wonder Woman, Superman, Batman, you obviously know about them, but anyone else, no fucking clue. Yeah. Season 2, I, for some reason, was super attached to Blue Beetle. I don't know why. I just thought it was really neat.
This is a goofball.
Really great. I loved it.
It's a fun character.
So, like, from someone who... You knew a lot about superheroes. Yeah. I knew very little about superheroes, but I was still able to really enjoy the show. Yeah. So even if superhero media is not your bag, if you like strong characters and drama and interpersonal relationships with some solid action, it's a great recommendation no matter what.
And I'd say one of the interesting things it does is, like, it kind of plays with your knowledge of these things here and there, where it introduces so many characters and so many concepts that sometimes it's a detriment because you're like you feel like you need, if you don't know anything about the DC universe, like, you don't know that Lex Luthor is this kind of guy who does this kind of thing, and, like, they give you, it's hard for me to say because I already knew all these things going into it, but there are certain characters.
Lex Luthor was, though.
Yeah, but imagine if this were the first DC universe thing you were exposed to. It would be a little hard to keep up.
It would be a little confusing. But I think, especially in modern times where superheroes are so huge, you're going to get very few people who have no exposure.
And I like that it doesn't baby you in the fact that it takes it as if you already know a lot of details, like Superman is from Krypton and he's weak to kryptonite. Like, it doesn't slow down and tell you a lot of, like, over-explain a lot of shit like that. Yeah. And it does it throughout the whole show.
Sometimes it almost goes too far with assuming you know things, but if you're paying attention, you can usually fill in the gaps.
you can pick up on it. And I like that because it's stimulating, where it's just like, all right, we're not getting too
bogged down in stupid
stuck in details. We're just going through and it's just like exposure to shitloads of villains and stuff, and only sometimes are you like, I wish I knew who the fuck this guy is, because I don't know if he's supposed to be important, I don't know if he's from a comic, I don't know whose villain he is. Some of that happens with, like, the Light in their sort of organization, where it's like, I kind of know who all these villains are, but, like, there's certain stuff where there's, like, the evil magic guy, and you're not really sure whose continuity he comes, or, like, Vertigo, where it's like, you get his power, but it's like, I assume he's like a Flash villain, because it seems like his power really
would be
counteracts the Flash, so I think he's from Flash lore, and then it's just like, I'm not sure how much I should be knowing about these contexts, but it doesn't really matter. Yeah. Doesn't
it really doesn't. Like,
matter.
You don't need to know where Count Vertigo came from to enjoy the show.
Yeah. But there's a lot of that shit, which is good. I enjoy it quite a bit. It's a fun show.
Yeah.
It's just so many fucking characters.
A ton of characters.
So many fucking characters.
You definitely have to be okay with not being spoon-fed who everybody is and what everyone's deal is and where they came from.
You roll with the punches. Cause
you just got to be like, all right, here's this guy, let's go.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know who you are, but we're going to figure it out.
Yeah, so I guess we can talk, spoilers loose. I'm enjoying this loose discussion about it because there's just so many things to touch on from 3 seasons that it's kind of more constructive to talk in general terms than, like, try to summarize
really
the plot of 3 seasons.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree.
But I enjoy the structure of it because it's like season 1, like I said, it's all about the characters. Season 2 gets really focused on this overarching giant plot with Blue Beetle and aliens and stuff. But, like,
the Reach, yeah.
Season 2 had the strongest plot line. I mean,
as far as overarching story, yeah.
It gets a little janky at the end because they obviously had to cut it short.
Because they got
less
canceled.
Episodes. And so it's like, there's a moment where it's like, all of the heroes and all of the bad guys are suddenly in this cave and fighting, and just everything is coming out all at once. And it's just like, oh, this is definitely not what they planned.
Yeah.
It feels like they had to rush an ending.
They had to get in there and get it done.
So they're just doing random shit. But there's a lot of fucking great stuff that happens in season 2, particularly with, like, they set it up where Aqualad is a bad guy now, working for his dad, and, like,
become a turncoat.
They do a great job of laying the foundation of, like, 5 years have passed between season 1 and 2, and it seems like a bunch of shit got fucked in 5 years, and we're not giving any context. Like, a Robin has died in those 5 years, because, like, knowing Batman lore, like, there's canonically always the 3 Robins. There's, like, Robin number 1, Dick Grayson, who becomes Nightwing, and then there's Robin number 2, who dies and becomes the Red Hood when he comes back in Under the Red Hood or whatever. And then there's Robin number 3, which is, like, Batman's biological son that he had with Catwoman, I think, is, like, whatever. Maybe that's a 4th Robin that comes later. All I know is there's usually
too many Robins.
There's usually canonically the 3 Robins.
And one of them is dead.
Yeah, and one of them is dead. So it's nice that they skip 5 years and they're casually just like, oh yeah, that Robin died. But they don't tell you any of how that happened. I'm not sure if they planned on it and didn't get to it, because there's definitely a lot of points where it seems like they set some plot threads out there and then don't get back to them.
On it during that season.
Like season 1 with McGann, there's her whole character is that she turns out to be a white Martian, which, like, if you know Martian Manhunter lore, white Martians are, like, discriminated against and shit.
Which, like, she explains that, though.
Yeah,
she does briefly
get
say,
to it.
like, she implies that they are discriminated against.
It comes back around, not super developed, but, like, you get an idea of that. But it's like, there's some questions to be left there where in season 1, Martian Manhunter's like, McGann has she has incomprehensible power greater than my own. And then there's, like, the white Martian aspect where it's like, she turns out to, you know, her human form has been based on this actress that she really liked.
Like
because
the sitcom that because Martian Manhunter would beam Earth cable to Mars. And so she grew up watching that and like, that was what when she came to Earth, that's what she wanted to be.
Yeah. And then they sow these seeds of her possibly being a traitor through, like, the Red Arrow plot in that season with Speedy, and he's like, oh, she might be a traitor or whatever. And so you're getting this thought of, like, there's something more going on with her. And there was a detail I remember where, because she was a stowaway on Martian Manhunter's ship. So she had snuck onto his ship and came, and that's when Martian Manhunter met her for the first time. He had not met her before that, even though he's one of her, like, 64 nieces or whatever. But, like, to me, that seemed like a setup for, okay, well, it's going to turn out that she isn't his niece. She's just, like, because she's a white Martian and he's a green Martian, you'd think they'd be, like, not even related at all. So I was like, oh, so it's going to be some kind of setup of where, like, because she's a white Martian, she's, like, extra powerful or something, and maybe she has, like, some sort of evil destiny, or she's going to realize it, and it's like, no, none of that matters after season 1, not relevant at all. We weren't setting up for that. It was just, like, an identity thing where she thought everyone was going to think she was a freak, and so she was hiding her identity, and it's like, all right, well, I guess I felt like they were implying more than they did. So there's some things in the show like that, where it's like, oh, I wonder if they're going to follow this thread and take that somewhere, and it's like, no, they don't. But they set so many threads out that it's understandable that some things don't go anywhere.
But I mean, some of it is very, very impressive, like, long-term game plan, like the mother and father box thing, which is, like, one fucking episode in season 1 with the weird eternal guys.
There's things that I think they set up deliberately to bring back, and then there's things that I think they just fabricate and bring back. Like, it's hard for me to believe that the mother-father box plotline was set up in season 1 to bring back in season 3. I don't know. But then I guess it ties so much into the apocalypse stuff. But then, like, I don't know that lore. Like, I don't know if that's, like, deep DC comic lore with apocalypse, or if they're just, like, combining a bunch of things. So it's hard for me to say, like, oh, the mother and father box was a setup for that to come back later. Because I don't know if those continuities have anything to do with each other in reality.
I mean, I see what you're saying, but simultaneously it's like, well, aside from establishing what Sphere is...
Yeah.
Why even have that episode if you weren't gonna do so? It's so specific.
Yeah, it's
father
really
boxes
weird.
Are evil, mother boxes are good. But there's this dude who created all this energy.
But, like, through season 1, they were introducing, like, a lot of random DC characters and stuff, and it just seemed like, oh, this is, like, a really fun, out there plot line to bring in and just be like, introduce some really wacky shit going on in the universe, because they hadn't delved into like aliens yet, because they don't really start interacting with aliens until later.
Season 2, yeah.
So I thought it was just like a fun episode like Justice League Unlimited would have done, where it's just like, oh, let's bring in like the most obscure, wacky ass fucking DC universe shit in here, but then maybe it was a setup, maybe it was a long game setup.
How could we even know?
Because they do a lot of long game setups, like with Beast Boy's origin, where it turns out McGann was based herself on this actress who was Beast Boy's mom, and then at some point the Beast Boy kid gets injured and McGann gives him a blood transfusion with her Martian blood, because it's the only way that he'll get healed, and so that creates Beast Boy, who now turns into animals because he has Martian transformation powers. Why he's green, I don't really know, because McGann is not green. She's a white Martian.
She's a white Martian, but
why he only turns into animals, I don't know.
Well, in season 3, it's because that particular, there's some alien or god that chose him.
Yeah, and then it gets a little ridiculous.
In that weird dream VR sequence.
I don't know. Well, that could have been non-literal, but I'm not sure.
It seemed like there was an actual power of some sort talking to him. Because he mentions, why do you think you can only turn into animals? It's because of me. Yeah. Because I chose you. What it is, I don't know.
They delve into some pretty fucking ridiculous shit. Always fun, though. Because that's what... It's like they're executing on the height of what comics do, which is ridiculous shit. That they always tone down in all of these adaptations, Which is one of the great things about what happens with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is that it gets so big that it eventually, in the later films, they start introducing crazy, wacky shit like Thor Ragnarok, where it's because the comics just get fucking nuts, They always get absolutely insane. And it's always toned down, which is why it's so good to have a cartoon with a billion characters to really, get in on all these crazy-ass plot lines. But yeah, so Beast Boy is a big setup and payoff. Oh, that's going to turn out to be Beast Boy. And then it does eventually turn out to be Beast Boy. And you're like, yeah, sick. They have a lot of stuff like that, which is really good.
Yeah, because when we were sitting there watching it and he mentioned his name was Garfield, I was like, Garfield, isn't that Beast Boy's real name? And you were like, is it? I don't remember Beast Boy being in this show. And I was like, I don't know. I think that's going to be Beast Boy. Yeah.
And then it makes me wonder, is this Beast Boy's origin story, or did they make up an origin story?
I have no fucking clue.
Because they get into a lot of convoluted shit like that later on. Let's just start talking about season 3, and we'll talk about other seasons in context, because season 3 has a lot of shit that I want to say that bothers me.
Has the most.
Because it has a lot of logic that becomes really fucking ridiculous. Because the overarching plot of season 3, in the beginning it starts off, in season 2, the aliens had come in and they started experimenting with the human metagene. And the metagene can give people superpowers. It's like a hereditary inherited gene.
And it can be dormant, and then it can be activated.
Exactly. So they were looking for humans with dormant metagenes and activating them. And so the repercussions of that going into season 3 after they beat the aliens is that now there's organizations looking for metateens and trafficking them and brainwashing them to become metahuman soldiers in alien wars, which is an awesome plot.
Which is great plot.
It's a great payoff to that setup of season 2. It is a good continuation of the direction.
And it makes sense as something that could happen in that particular scenario.
Exactly. It's that would definitely happen when you have all these
kids
evil
from
fucking
third
players.
World countries, kids who don't have families, and they're just being stolen off the streets and seeing if they're being tested for the metagene and trafficked. It's that would happen.
It's cool to see them take the plot in a direction that they could not have done on Cartoon Network. Where it's they're taking advantage of the DC. They do a lot of that where...
They do a lot of things where they're flaunting the fact that they're not barred by being on cable. Which can be good and can be bad.
It's good in the way that they tackle human trafficking. That's a really interesting plotline for this to take, and they could not have done that on cable, That's where it kind of gets confusing over so you're going for a more adult vibe, but then also this is still teen melodrama, and you still feel... It doesn't change the fact that this is a show for teens. It's just now it's an edgy show for teens that can have blood. Which should be in teen shows, because teens aren't idiots and you shouldn't be babying them with bullshit. But it's definitely still I wouldn't say this is now an adult cartoon, because there's a bunch of dumb teen shit that happens that is fucking annoying and kind of ruined season 3. But in terms of ridiculousness of the plot, I was talking about the metagenes because there's a backstory with the metagenes that is a little fucking ridiculous. Because Vandal Savage has been like the overarching bad guy and the leader of the Light, and they didn't really explain who the fuck he was at any point until now. And so they get to the episode where they give you Vandal Savage's backstory, where it turns out that he was a Neanderthal caveman. Or no, he wasn't a Neanderthal. He was a human, and then there were like the other cavemen.
And there were Neanderthals also hanging out.
He was one of the first human cavemen, and he ended up finding a space rock.
Yes.
That altered his genes and turned him into the first metahuman. And it gave him immortality and also like super strength and stuff.
He's a big boy.
Yeah, he's a strong man. But basically, it is explained that because he was the first metahuman and one of the first humans, that every metahuman now is a descendant of Vandal Savage, and he created the metagene. And so it starts to get really fucking weird and confusing. Because in this universe, people like the Flash have a scientific story of how they got their powers.
Right.
Like, the Flash did an experiment that turned him into the Flash. Kid Flash did the same experiment and turned into Kid Flash. But then you have the Flash's grandson who comes back from the future in season 2 and has the same powers. And it's implied that there is a hereditary power of super speed passed down in the Flash family.
Now, to be fair, in Teen Titans, it is never established that is how Flash got his powers or how Kid Flash got their powers. So they could have the
You mean in Young Justice?
Or that's what I meant.
But it is.
Young Justice. It
is implied because Wally explains in season 1 that he recreated the experiment that the Flash did to get his power. That is canonically how he got his powers, which they bring up later because he's not as fast as the other Flashes. So you could argue
But did that experiment just activate their metagene?
That's what you could argue, but I think that is really dumb and lame because that just negates the origin story of so many heroes where it's like, these aren't metahumans. And then there's like...
Well, and again, you could apply that logic to any hero
Yeah, because it's like,
story.
Okay, so you have that with the Flash. You have Beast Boy and McGann, who are Martians. Are Martians... Do they just have aliens. The metagene? Yeah, they're aliens. So they're Martians. But they do count in the end.
But they're normal on Mars. Well, Megan's super powerful.
Because they talk about the metagene,
powers.
And then later in the show, there's a scene where Granny Goodness, we'll fucking get into that, but Granny Goodness is like the
spoiler talk.
There's the fucking human equation or whatever, and fucking
the life
she
equation.
establishes that the life equation has brain controlling effects on people who have the metagene, but for people who don't have the metagene, it just makes them feel excruciating pain.
It basically makes them catatonic and kills them.
Yes. So, you have a very clear, plot-explained explanation of who has a metagene and who doesn't. So who is taken over by that device? Martian Manhunter? The Hawk aliens? Superman? These are not metahumans from the establishment of what a metahuman is in this plot. They are not descendants of Vandal Savage. So then you have to go, okay, well, I guess this alien rock must have been like containing the alien essence that is in every alien in the universe. Because I guess every single alien is a metahuman. Even though, like, in season 2, you had Superboy going like, well, I'm not a metahuman. I'm a clone from a science experiment based on a Kryptonian in a human. Like, he's not a metahuman. Superman's a Kryptonian. So there's a little bit of stuff in season 3 exclusively that becomes very fucking ridiculous. Like, this wasn't a problem in season 2 when they created metahumans. It's a problem in season 3 where they have a very convoluted plot to control metahumans, where now all of a sudden you have to make very clear who is and isn't. Which
pedantic divisions.
Just comes down to everyone who has a power is now considered a metahuman, and everyone who doesn't have a power is just a human who's not affected.
Yeah, it becomes a blanket term, for sure.
And so it kind of ruins a lot of the, like, mystique of the lore, I guess, where it's like, okay, so now, fuck off with the metahuman stuff. Like, not everyone... This doesn't make any sense anymore.
Yeah.
It's just a little... There's stuff in season 3 that starts to become, like, contrived distractions, whereas there's stuff in season 2 that's contrived and not a distraction. Where you're like, I'm fine with this, you know?
This is okay.
Just season 3 gets so fucking ridiculous with all of its fucking supernatural alien plot machine lore. That it's just like, you're losing me a little bit. A little bit.
Like,
you're getting fucking ridiculous with this.
The box with the little guy inside of it.
Yeah, and it's like, this stuff is fun because it's absurd, but also it gets a little out of control Because the overarching plot of season 3 doesn't become clear until maybe 8 or 9 episodes in, really. Yeah. But, because it's got the metahuman trafficking. They spend, like, 8 episodes where they fucking go to this, Markovia, a Middle Eastern country. You know, that's imaginary, obviously. But, it becomes this, like, political plot with the Prince of Markovia, who becomes a metahuman because his uncle is trying to take over Markovia, and they were doing metahuman trafficking under the sea, that he discovers it, and he becomes a metahuman so he can fight his uncle, and then they find this girl who was dead, and then she's brought back to life, and she doesn't know who she is, and she has amnesia, and there's just, like, all the shit that's introduced, and then they introduce all that very quickly, and then they spend, like, 8 episodes developing the worst characters in the fucking universe, and they are just taxing. Like, I just hate what they're on the screen, and I just go like, God, I hate this, because the Prince of Markovia is this ugly motherfucker with big ol' sideburns, and he's supposed to be, like, 17, but he sounds and looks like a full-grown man, so it's impossible to, like, empathize with him at any point, because he's just, like, this big baby man.
He's just a fucking little piss baby.
And his whole thing is that he's just pissed off all the fucking time, and it's just so lame. I just hate it.
Sucks.
Brianne is the worst character ever.
The show.
And he has a good payoff in the end, and like he becomes more tolerable as the show goes along, but there's like 7 episodes focusing on Brianne and Halo. Halo is a girl who was dead, and then there's a mother box, and the mother box contains a soul of a mother spirit, and then the mother box is destroyed, and the soul finds this girl's dead body, and so the mother box has now become personified in a human, and the girl's memories are leaking into her, but she's like a child, she's like a newborn, because she has no experience with the world, and so you have fucking newborn mother box girl who is annoying as hell, annoying as fuck,
also,
with all the stupid fish out of water bullshit.
Like God. She is basically God, and she can do anything, and she has powers that just come out of nowhere, and they suit the situation, and she's just God. And
because she's a spirit of a mother boxes are used to teleport in this world, because mother boxes are, of course, like this godlike fucking thing that'll do anything. Like, that was established, but like that was fine in the lore of like, oh, there's these magic boxes made by these aliens, and like they're this ridiculous thing coming out of this ridiculous plotline. But now there's a character that's a mother box. So now there's a character that can teleport literally anywhere with the drop of a hat from a thought.
And also, she can't be killed. If you kill her, she comes back to life.
Which the show uses as this annoying excuse to have her like be brutally murdered all the time.
She's the only character that gets brutalized like this. Yeah. And you know it's because they're like, ooh, we're on the DC app now, baby. We can show blood. We can show people getting their face fucking bashed in. But they don't want to do it to a character that actually has repercussions. So they do it to Halo over and over and over again. And you're just like, oh, here we go. Let's watch Halo get her throat slit. Oh, she's going to come back to life.
It could have been nice, and it is to an extent, because, like, something that's missing in superhero cartoons is a sense of danger, because everyone is nonviolent, no one will kill each other, but then it doesn't make sense because the villains also won't hurt the heroes, when the villains are supposed to be murderers and psychopaths, and you never feel like they're as scary as they should be, because they can't do that in cartoons. So, like, from the villain perspective, it could be cool to, like, you see them kill Halo, and it's like, oh, they will use lethal force sometimes. But now it becomes like, but they'll only do that to Halo. They'll only do it to Halo. They won't kill any other character.
Which is very convenient.
I mean, sometimes they do have some payoffs with, like, murdering other characters. There's a big one in the end with fucking Markovia boy, like, murdering his fucking uncle in the end. And that was pretty awesome. And it was like, man, someone killed somebody. And he points out, like, the hypocrisy of, like, why are you not going to kill this guy? And that was fun.
Which is valid. Very valid.
But yeah, anyways, Halo is a shit character. I cringe every single fucking second that she's on the screen. But after about, like, the initial 8 episodes, which are just going in and in and in on training these fucking dipshits who are just so boring and so lame. And yeah, they introduce Fred Burger.
Fucking Forager.
So there's this character Forager, where they have this random episode where everyone is fucking teleported to this alien planet, where there's these bug people, and the new gods, there's like fake new gods who are reigning over the bug people in their spaceship, and then like they're coming down. It's just like this fucking dumb plot. Oh, I hated that episode so much. Because it turns out McGann's long lost brother is pretending to be one of the new gods and oppressing the bug people, and then the bug people all turn on Forager.
He's doing it so the bug people will rise up.
Yeah.
Gamers rise up.
Because there's the nice bug boy Forager, and he goes to Earth to try to get help through teleporting, and then he teleports them all there. And then the other bug people are all mad because they're like, you brought these intruders here. We don't trust you anymore, Forager. We hate you. And so, like...
Which they already were shitting on Forager all the time anyway, which I don't blame them. But, you know.
So throughout that episode, you're like, oh, God, this character sucks. I hate this.
Forager talks like this, and Forager always has to use his whole fucking name every time Forager speaks.
And so you're like, all right, annoying throwaway character for this episode, whatever. And then at the end of the episode, they go, hey, Forager, come with us.
Well, because they know he can't continue to live on his planet anymore because everyone's so mean and everyone hates him so much. So he has no choice but to fucking become a refugee and come to Earth and join the team.
So Forager's on the team now, and I guess they treat him as if he is a 14-year-old bug man. Like, because you're looking at this, like, muscle beast bug thing with 4 arms. And it's like this big, hulking, grotesque, like, fuck machine. Like, it's just a built, stacked motherfucker. It's like looking at a horse. It's just like
if a horse had the mind of, like, a dog.
Yes, and he goes, I'm Forager. Look at my hulking veins and bulging muscles. Oh, Forager. And so they treat him as if he's this 14-year-old boy. And he becomes part of the trio of fucking Brian,
unholy trio
Halo, and
of characters
Forager.
I can't stand.
So they somehow took 2 characters that you can't stand and added a 3rd character that is like, what? It's like the most tropey Disney bullshit, and then it's like...
He is the Gurgi of this show.
He's the Gurgi. If you don't know, that's from the Black Cauldron. Gurgi is the shittiest character of all time ever conceived.
Gurgi is the shitty mascot character that you want to throttle.
But he's the embodiment of every shit, third wheel, fucking dumb, comic relief bullshit character. And so it's like, you're taking the season 3, we're on an adult channel now, we're doing human trafficking, we're doing murder, we're doing edgy shit. Forager.
And Forager.
So you have 2 characters that have baby minds, and then a bug that has a baby mind. And so, like, these are the most juvenile characters that have ever happened in this show.
Yeah, these kids are more immature than the characters at 13 at the first season.
Yeah, in season 1, everyone was literally a child and immature and going through teen drama stuff, but, like, they were good, well-rounded characters. They had good conscience, and, like, they were going through real struggles. And now you have, like, these 3 characters that I couldn't give half of a shit about, and they get way more development than any other character. Season 2,
so much time with them.
Season 2, we introduce, like, 10 new kids, and we just go with them. And, like, their development happens while all the plot is happening.
Exactly.
Season 3 takes, like, 7 episodes to not focus on, like, the bigger overarching plot really at all. They trickle things out. And so it's like it's kind of necessary to have this point because they have to establish so much that, like, I understand they had to slow down and start laying the groundwork for a lot of shit.
Sure.
But they focus so much on these new characters, and they haven't done that ever in the rest of the show. Focus this much on these characters that do nothing. Their progress is incredibly slow.
They spend a whole episode sending Halo and Forager to high school. Something that is casually mentioned for a couple of the characters in season 1, and then completely never spoken of again, because guess what? Watching these characters in high school is the dullest thing in the universe.
And Forager becomes Fred Bug with 2 G's. And so he has to spend 20 minutes of the episode saying, I'm Fred Bug with 2 G's. I'm Fred Bug with 2 G's. And you're like, I get it. He's retarded. We understand the joke.
Cannot.
And then they have to come to the point where, the other girl goes, you don't have to say Fred Bug with 2 G's. You could just say Fred Bug. And he goes, oh, thank you. Fred Bug with 2 G's. It was tired of saying Fred Bug with 2 G's.
The character literally goes, you don't have to say your whole name every time.
Yes.
And so he changes from saying Fred Bug with 2 G's to just Fred Bug every fucking time.
Yes. And it's just like the easiest, dumbest joke that they stretch so fucking thin. And there's so much of that with these characters that is just infuriating for 8 or 9 episodes. And then from then on, it becomes back to normal, like back to being Young Justice, feeling fine. Like there's some retarded shit. You still have these characters popping up where like every episode they have to have some scene with these characters.
They're around, they're doing things.
Because like I get it, they're a big part of this plot, but like you don't have to remind us constantly. Like in season 2, they'd go several episodes just ignoring certain characters and focusing on others, and then they'd come back to them, and you still remember what's going on.
Like, oh yeah, I didn't forget about this guy.
In season 3, it's like they think you're gonna forget about Markovia if we don't talk about it every episode. We don't divert and talk about all this bullshit and these fucking characters.
Doesn't fucking bitch about finding Para for 10 minutes. You're gonna forget that that's his whole purpose in life.
Yeah. It's very frustrating. Very, very frustrating. Oh. But other than that, if you snipped out all of that, season 3 would be great. Like it would be. I mean, not as good as season 2, but still pretty good.
That's one of the things that's like so mystifying about the beginning of season 3 is like this is a show that for the first 2 seasons it doesn't hold your hand. It like jumps into things and it expects you to kind of read your context clues and figure out what's going on. But at the beginning of season 3, they spend 10 episodes just dragging out every little detail of these characters that I couldn't give 2 shits about. Like, why?
And there's lots of stuff that they gloss over with the old characters. Where like they push it in the back and then they focus so much on the new characters. Yeah, and so like until 8 or 9 episodes in, like the central plot seems to take this back seat for these annoying characters, and then they just start like telling you things that they could have told you in episode 2 and you would have been like, oh, okay. Where like the plot setup, they set up that Batman and a bunch of the Justice League guys defect in the beginning because they're like, oh, the Justice League is focusing too much on foreign wars and they're not paying attention to Earth.
Too restricted by the UN.
Yeah, and they're too in the media focus. They're being too restricted. Like it's not what they signed up for. So they're like, oh, we're gonna leave. But like their logic in that is like, this team sucks. We're gonna leave, and they defect. And then it turns out.
It was a ploy.
Like it was a ploy, and it was obviously a ploy because they have like this other team that Batman leads where they're doing covert shit because they want to be able to get around the government and all this stuff and all these forces that have been put on the Justice League. And so it turns out that like they had organized with Wonder Woman and Aqualad, who were the chairs of the Justice League, and like everyone knew this was going on.
Well, certain people knew.
Yeah, certain people knew. Which was basically everyone, except for Black Lightning and Superboy, I guess? But every other main character knew what was going on from the beginning, it turns out. Like, most of the characters knew.
And, like, Beast Boy's team, the Outsiders, didn't know.
A couple people, but most of the important people know what's going on. And so it's like, why did we even set this up? Because the payoff for that isn't really much of anything. When it turns out, like, eventually it's revealed to Black Lightning that everyone knew what was going on. And you're like, wait a minute. No one told him? Like, I didn't know that it was so relevant that we weren't supposed to know that this was happening. It was weird.
And another criticism is, like, that same idea is explored much better in season 2.
Yeah, they had already done that.
The double crossing of Aqualad, where they think he's gone traitor, but he's actually working as a deep agent to sabotage the light.
Yeah.
And they do a much better job of handling it in that season, and it creates the same feelings of, like, turmoil and strife within the team members who were left out of the loop, especially, like, yeah. So it's like, well, why would you do the same thing again, but less, but
less good and with less dramatic payoff? Because, like, season 2 was so good with that plot line, where the reveals are like, whoa, okay. Like, I had a suspicion, but man, you reveal that. And then you get, like, what that season does really, really well is it shows you where it's going from the beginning. You know where the plot is going. And then it gives you, like, the hero side and the villain side, and you get these insights into what's going on every level, where you always understand where it's going, and you're excited.
You know what's going on, and you know who does and who doesn't know what's going on. So when that comes around, the emotional payoff is really good.
Yeah. And then in season 3, you don't really know where it's going. Like, you know they're trying to stop human trafficking, but you don't really know what's going on with that. And then it diverts to all this bullshit for a while. And then all of a sudden in like episode 9, they explain the backstory of Vandal Savage and that he's at war with Apocalypse or whatever. Because it turns out Vandal Savage like made some kind of deal when Apocalypse tried to take over the Earth, that he was like, oh, we're gonna raise our own armies and then we're gonna fight each other eventually, and we'll see who's like the best at conquering the universe or whatever.
Honorable combat, bro.
Vandal Savage has like this ongoing like rivalry with Apocalypse, and that like informs the whole plot. And it's like they explained this so late that you're just like, but we couldn't. Like, if I had known what was going on earlier, I would have been invested in what the fuck was happening. But I wasn't.
Yeah.
And, like,
and ultimately, it's pretty inconsequential that those team members weren't aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like they're mad for an episode, and then they're like, okay.
And then as soon as it becomes, like, this, the title of the show is Young Justice Outsiders, and it eventually ends up focusing on, like, there's a hard shift into Beast Boy as the main character now.
And it happens pretty deep into the season.
Yeah. And, like, all of a sudden, all the characters from season 2 are coming back. And that's, like, yeah, episode 13 or something. And, like, all of a sudden, from then on, you're super invested. All the characters are great. Everything is awesome.
What if you bring back, like, fucking Spike Spiegel and Blue Beetle and all those dudes? I'm like, yeah, it's my boys.
And you're just like, why couldn't they have woven in the new characters with all that stuff earlier on so that we had something to care about and not just watching these characters that we don't give half a shit about for a bunch of episodes and then getting to really good stuff? I think it's because when I looked on IMDb, there were 2 writers for this season. One that did, like, 13 episodes and another that did, like, 13 episodes. I feel like they just shifted writers at some point, and it got better. I also think it was released as 2 13-episode cores, so I think it might have been, like, treading water for the first core and then, like, getting into it for the second core.
I mean,
it felt like a literal shift.
Because the latter half
quality.
definitely felt like the old seasons of Young Justice, whereas the first half felt like something who, like, someone saw those seasons of Young Justice and went, but what if we made it woke?
Yeah. Yeah, the woke shit is a little, oh,
and I'm like, but what if we didn't do that, though? Like, what if
so
we
I
didn't?
gotta bring up, with Halo, she fucking, like, she's a Middle Eastern character.
Which is fine.
And there's this thing where, like, she wakes up and she doesn't know who she is or anything at all.
Right, amnesia.
But she ends up putting on a fucking burqa.
Yeah, it just feels right, she says.
And a character literally has to ask, why are you wearing that burqa?
I think it's a hijab, actually.
Hijab. Why are you wearing that hijab? And she goes, I don't know. I just feel comfortable in it. And you're like, I mean, that's fine.
But do we need to address it?
It felt like it was like it's because her past self liked to wear this. And so she's like, and she lost her memories. So yeah. But then it turns out that she isn't her past self at all. She's a mother box. And the mother box is forming its own new identity. But the mother box decided that it was the most comfortable at this hijab.
But I guess you could say the mother box is it's incorporated aspects of, like, the memories that she's being flooded with could have influenced her to do this. There's all sorts of excuses you can make for that. That's whatever.
But it mostly feels like we want to have a girl who wears a hijab at our show.
Yeah. And also is non-binary.
Yeah, and is non-binary.
But is thick as fuck.
Yeah, she got a fat ass.
They draw her so unnecessarily. Like, in a show full of characters that have historically been drawn with, like, negative ass.
But, well, the thing is, in season 3, everyone has a nice ass.
That's
like,
true.
Artemis's ass is, like, all over.
They buff the asses in season 3.
They buff the asses hardcore, and I love it.
Dude,
but then
the dudes have asses,
but then
the
Halo's
chicks have
ass
asses.
is, like,
Halo's
ridiculous.
Is, like, dummy thick.
Like, it looks funny. You know, there's certain things where it's like,
it sticks out. She's so thick.
Like, I'm a fan of a fat ass, but, like, when it comes to animation, there's certain things that just look funny in animation, and that looks fucking funny.
She looks really
and
silly.
Then Brian's got a man booty, and it is just his crack is just exposed at all times. Like, the ass crack game is ridiculous in this.
There is some
good God,
in season
guys!
3
Like, there's certain liberties you can take with not having to show every character's ass crack every fucking time. Like, good lord.
Ooh. Also,
booties.
I would like to briefly discuss how Aqualad is Voltron Shiro'd in season 3.
Aqualad is at some point just suddenly gay.
Just randomly, in this random scene, he brings one of the metahumans to Atlantis because her metagene makes her able to breathe underwater.
And they're setting up this thing where it seems like, oh, she likes Aqualad.
Right,
she wants to fuck him.
They set it up where she's like, oh yeah, well clearly she's feeling the mode. She's into this.
And then they subvert
and she gives him a kiss on the cheek.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden he's like, okay, cool. And then he goes and kisses his boyfriend. And you're like, whoa! Like, it's fine if Aqualad's gay, but
who
like...
Who is this guy, though?
Yeah, it's just some guy that comes out of nowhere.
At first I thought it was his best friend who had tried to marry the girl that he loved who died in season 2. And then I'm like, wait, no, that's not Garth. That's just some random guy. So it's like how Shiro just ended up marrying some random guy at the end of Voltron. He just got Shiro'd.
I'm fine that Aqualad is gay and all, but like, you could have...
Give me some precedent.
Develop something.
Yeah,
like most of the characters end
dude.
up with one of the people that they're like. You could have had another character that he fell in love with over time or something. You know, like it's just some dude.
Or introduce it at the beginning of the season. You know.
Yeah.
So that way you can discover how their relationship unfolded. Don't just have him kiss this dude and then all of a sudden this dude is his boyfriend. Like that. No. What?
There's certain funny timeline shenanigans between season 2 and season 3 where it seems like some characters sort of progressed a lot in 2 years. It's like a 2-year time skip and like fucking Red Arrow Speedy, what's his new name?
Harper.
Yeah, because there's a plot line in season 1, there's Speedy, who's Red Arrow's protege, and he wants to go off on his own and do his own thing. And so in season 2, or at the end of season 1, I think he discovers that he's actually a clone, and that the real Speedy is still out there somewhere. So season 2, he like has this fucking breakdown where he becomes like this disheveled fuck because he's just overcome trying to find Speedy, and he becomes an alcoholic and all this stuff.
And
it's like, yeah, it's pretty funny. And so his arc is resolved when he finally finds the original Speedy, and then that Speedy becomes Arsenal.
Because he lost an arm, and then Lex Luthor gives him a big weapon arm.
Yeah, and so he becomes his own guy, and so it's like they find their own identities, and Speedy at some point had hooked up with
Cheshire. He was married to Cheshire.
Yeah. In season 2, he wasn't married to her yet. They had just fucked.
No, they were married.
They were married.
They were married.
But they were like they were separated, and then it turns out Cheshire's pregnant. And has the baby in season 2,
baby.
right?
Like the baby's literally there.
She keeps carrying the baby on missions. It's super weird.
Why would you bring an infant on a mission?
Yeah, so Cheshire helps him find the real Speedy, and then at the end of the season 2, they're together. It's resolved or whatever, and Cheshire's like, I'm gonna stop being a bad guy or whatever. So you go into season 3, and now all of a sudden, in the span of 2 years, fucking Speedy has stopped being a hero and started a security company that seems pretty massive.
It's pretty successful.
And he's got a beard now, and he seems like a 35-year-old dad.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of character they're going for here.
Also, his child seems to have become like 4 years old over the span of 2 years.
Portrayed a little too old. It is just like his character changed dramatically in 2 years.
Also, can we talk about how fucking hilarious the security mission for Speedy's company episode is?
Horrible episode.
Where you have 3 dudes who fucking look the same, and I keep losing track of who is who. And the whole time we're like, who is this other guy? Who is this guy? Yeah. And then it turns out he's the original Guardian, and you totally forgot who he was, and you were just like,
so it was like this character that was
red hair.
relevant in season 1 and gone in season 2, and then they bring him back in season 3 like you're supposed to remember who the fuck he is, and it's like, I don't remember who the hell this guy is, because he's Speedy's uncle or whatever.
The whole time I'm just like, who is this?
Very confusing, very confusing.
That episode's dumb as shit.
There's a lot of confusing shit in this show. Like in season 2, they introduce the Bumblebee girl who can shrink, and then her boyfriend is this guy who's just some guy.
Mal.
He's just a regular dude.
He's just a nice guy.
For some reason in season 2, he's like the organizer in the Young Justice. He's like part of the team. And so you go like, is this guy, does he have powers? Like, who is it? No. Like, they literally...
His power is being really nice.
They do not tell you who he is in season 2. They don't do it. They give you no backstory. They don't even name him for a while. You have no idea
really pay
who he
attention
is.
To catch his name.
He's just there. Eventually you find out that he's with the other girl, but you don't even know that. They kind of go into like the fact that he feels inadequate to her because she is a genius stuff, but they don't go. You have no idea who the fuck this guy is at all.
And it's really funny because at a certain point I got really confused because I mixed up Bumblebee and Rocket because they were both like getting married at the same time, and I was losing track of like they were having a wedding shower, and I was like, who? So is she marrying that guy, or is Bumblebee marrying that guy? I lost track of what we were
these characters that they throw in and they don't develop at all, and then they do like an episode about them. And you're like, what the fuck is that? Like, I don't know what these relationships are. And so that guy was just around in season 2, and then he becomes like the Guardian because he finds the armor in like a late ass episode in season 2.
Yeah.
And then he's just like around, and then he's just kind of gone in season 3, and he just appears like a little bit.
He's just there to be Bumblebee's husband.
But like he had no point at all.
See,
he was just around.
Where I got confused was I didn't realize he had given up being Guardian and given it back to the Harper guy?
Yeah.
So I was really confused when you told me he was Guardian. I was like, oh, he's the original Guardian.
And there's never a moment with the Harper guy where it's like, I've resigned being Guardian and given it over. His suit was just like in a museum.
It's just in a museum.
And so you're like, is he
it's in
dead?
the Justice League Hall. Like the one on Earth.
So confusing.
It's very, yeah.
Which he was also a character in season 1 where he's introduced and it's like...
He's working in the lab where Superboy's cloned.
Yeah, but it's like, you don't know if he's like a villain guy or a hero guy. It's like, what the... Who is this guy?
I thought he was a villain initially.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, he's a good guy.
They assume that you have a context to know who the fuck Guardian is. And it's like, we don't know who the fuck Guardian is.
And I'm supposed to just glean the fact that he's related to the Fast Boys.
Yeah. Very odd. Very odd.
Not the Fast Boys,
the
Arrow Boys.
Arrow guys, because there's like 50
God,
million
so
arrows.
many red-haired characters in this show.
Yeah.
Ah!
It's very confusing with stuff like that.
Oof.
So we've gone off the rails this discussion, I think. It's hard to talk, because there's 3 seasons we're trying to talk about, and we're venting frustrations about season
episodes 3.
But like, to
cover.
explain what's wrong with season 3, you have to start talking about the other seasons. But yeah, there's 70-something episodes of this. Would recommend. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. As much as we're shitting on those, like, 13 really unfortunate episodes at the start of the 3rd season,
it turns around.
It does turn around.
It becomes a lot of fun.
It loops back into being the Young Justice that you love. There's a really cool origin story for Cyborg, who becomes a really great character.
Another one where you're like, I don't know if this has always been Cyborg's story, but I'm on board, you know? Okay,
no clue,
it was pretty cool.
But it's neat.
Yeah. They basically, like, it's interesting how the show is called Young Justice, but, like, in season 2, they basically become the Justice League, because the Justice League is like, on a separate, they're on trial on an alien planet for shit that happened in season 1, and they spend the entire season there, and so the Young Justice kind of has to take the role of the Justice League in the shadows.
They have to pick up the slack.
And then in season 3, it's kind of like, well, like, the Young Justice guys are now the leaders of the Justice League. So, like, this is
it's not really...
This is just a Justice League show. It doesn't, like, the Young Justice element doesn't, like, this is just a Justice League cartoon at this point, you know? Yeah. It just doesn't focus on Superman and Wonder Woman and all that. They kind of come and go here and there. But yeah, a lot of fun. Yeah. A lot of fucking fun.
I think one of my favorite things about watching this show with you was in season 2 when they established Nightwing, and anytime Nightwing was on screen or did something, you'd just be like, Nightwing's such a Chad. Nightwing's so cool. Oh, he's so cool. He's such a Chad. I'm like,
he's so dope.
Okay, we get it. You want to fuck Nightwing.
Cool, dude. Nightwing is the shit. He's my favorite.
It was pretty good.
Dude, okay, Nightwing gets to fuck Zatanna. And, who's the other girl? Oh, Batgirl.
Batgirl, yeah.
It's like the 2 hottest girls in DC Universe.
She's in a wheelchair,
and Yeah, I mean, it would have been nice back before she was in a wheelchair, but, like, Dick Grayson gets the waifus, like, and he's a fucking... Like, he goes from being little tiny Dick Grayson to being a big-ass Chad who's bigger than Superboy in 18. 5 years, and just fucking... slaying it. He's just the best. He's Batman without all of the bullshit hang-ups of Batman. So he's like the best character, you know? He doesn't take shit from anyone. He has no powers, but he still fucking holds his own like a fucking maximum Chad.
He does have no powers. He still manages to kick ass.
Because he has all the cool elements of Batman, where it's like Batman has no powers. He just has his intelligence, and so he's the strongest hero. He can beat Superman if he wanted. He could keep everyone in check because he is the smartest, and he has all these contingencies, and he invents ways to subvert other heroes because, you know, in the event that they got mind controlled, Batman has to take them down. So like Nightwing gets to take over as that guy, but without having all of the hang-ups that Batman has, where Batman is like this broken man who's obsessed with the revenge and has all this bullshit that they put on him and is too distrusting of people, whereas Nightwing is like a perfect guy, you know?
He's like the perfect guy.
Because he explains in season 1, during his identity struggle, that like he's Batman's protege, he's grown up, like he wants to be like Batman, he wants to take on that role, but he's afraid because he doesn't have the sense of revenge that Batman has. And so he doesn't think he could be this leader because he doesn't have this, like, driving passion that Batman has. But, like, eventually, he's just as good as Batman without that.
He just into the role of being the leader without wanting it.
His passion is leading and caring for this team and helping these young people develop. Yeah. He doesn't need the revenge of Batman, you know?
And I mean, as is true in real life, oftentimes the best leaders are the people who don't want to be leaders because they naturally fall into that role and they genuinely care about the well-being of the people below them, because unlike people who desire to be a leader, usually those people want power or money or something that leads them to step on the people below them. But someone who doesn't want to be a leader usually has more altruistic motives.
Yeah, and you get the sense that Nightwing wants to lead that team. Like, he loves the Young Justice team. He wants to be part of that whole thing. And, like, Aqualad gets to be part of the Justice League and be a leader of the Justice League. He's a great leader and everything, but, like, you know, Nightwing just wants to stay in his lane. Yeah.
The Aqualad. Or
Aqualad,
Aquaman.
I mean, fucking great plot line with Aqualad where he becomes Aquaman eventually. And it's like, whoa, we got the coolest Aquaman we could possibly have.
Right? It doesn't get any better than that.
He's fucking Aqualad is badass throughout the whole thing.
Aqualad is like so unbelievably competent at all times.
He's fucking awesome.
He's just like always holding shit down. Like, Jesus.
And it's great. Something I love about some DC heroes is that, like, not everyone has to be a flawed character to be interesting and cool, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's interesting to have characters that are adults and have their shit together and can interact with the plot in an interesting way, you know?
Especially because those characters can interact with the characters who are, like, more immature or do have flaws and like, reel them in and kind of, So that's always an interesting dynamic, too.
That's been one of my defenses of characters like Superman, where, like, people don't like the idea of Superman because he's too powerful and he's a Mary Sue and all this stuff. And it's like, but he, like, what Superman is portrayed as typically in, like, the Justice League cartoons is that he is, like, a competent, reasonable adult with a good sense of values and, like, and can do, like, he is someone to aspire to be. He's a good guy. Well, like, sometimes you need a good guy.
I think the issue with Superman comes when he's by himself.
Yeah.
When you put him in an ensemble cast, he becomes a much more interesting
he's a great character. I guess, and he's mishandled a lot, where it's like Man of Steel, that's like, oh, well, Superman,
Zack Snyder,
now he has to be like this fucking wishy-washy bitch, like, shitty character, because, oh, Superman, he's too strong, people aren't gonna watch him. It's like, no, well, when you have a character like Superman, you can put him into more interesting plots, where he has, like, an ethical dilemma or something, because he's a man of morality, and he has to follow, like, a certain code, and he won't kill because he's a character that he has to control his powers because he's too powerful, and so, like, he has this sense of, you know, he could be unhinged and kill someone if he wanted. Like, he's so powerful that he has to put arbitrary rule sets on himself. But then there's also, like, there's so many characters in DCU that are just as strong or stronger than Superman.
I mean, Halo arguably could be just as strong as Superman.
And he has very clear weaknesses in terms of, like, kryptonite and stuff, where, like, you can take him down. If you just went to Krypton, he's a regular guy. Right. Like, there's plenty of ways to take down Superman. He's not that powerful as people blow him up to be. What you see in Young Justice, because Superman's just kind of one of the guys, you know?
He's just a guy who's around, and he's kind of a shithead initially to Superboy. And
they do a lot of great plot lines where they're able to focus on the characters that don't even have powers and have them be the most important, because they're doing a lot of covert ops and behind the scenes and spy stuff where it's like, that's where those heroes can shine. It's not always about the big galactic battle of fighting the strongest guy. This is about human trafficking and political struggles and, like, the stuff that heroes can't just punch their way through. That's why we need all these teams, and we need Nightwing. Like, we need the guy with no powers who can be a ninja. Like, everyone is important, and they incorporate all of their roles really well in all of the different scenarios that they're in.
Yeah.
Where it's like, especially in season 1, it'll be like, there's a team that they're going against, and there's always the strong guy that Superboy has to fight, while everyone else does all this other stuff, and it's like, there's a role for everyone on this team.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what their power level is. There's stuff for people to do.
There are always unique ways that they fit into the team.
Yeah.
Also, Static Shock is in the show.
Oh, Static Shock! I forgot to talk about Static Shock! Yeah. It's an awesome origin payoff. Where you're like, that's gonna be Static Shock. That's gonna be Static Shock! And then it becomes Static Shock! You're like, oh, it's Static Shock! They got Static Shock!
Static Shock, a show nobody watched.
They find all of the hypest, obscure, like, people from your childhood. They're like, yeah, just put them all in the show.
Just throw them all in there.
This is great. Put them all in.
Shazam is there. Shazam's character is great in the show.
Yeah, he was great.
I think he's really cute.
Totally
really charming.
Stopped existing in season 3, but
in season 1,
season 1
he's a lot
really
of fun
good
to have around.
A lot of interesting mechanics with his powers. They do a great job of exploring.
There's a whole episode taking advantage, full use of his power.
Yeah. Where every adult in the world is sent away
to a different timeline.
To a different timeline. And so Shazam, because he could go between being an adult and a kid, he could go between the two alternate realities, which is really cool. And it's a perfect one episode thing.
Yeah, it's perfect for him.
To, like, explore that plot and then just let it go, you know?
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, Superboy gets sidekicks. He's got Spear and Dougie.
Yeah, I didn't even talk about Superboy. He was my favorite character in season 1.
Season 1
sure.
is such a great season for Superboy.
He kind of takes a bit of a back seat, especially in season 2. He doesn't really have anything to do. Because season 1 is very much about Superboy and his development. And he's great because he's just like...
He's just angry boy.
But he's angry for good reason because he was brought into this world. Yeah, and he's very empathetic and he's hilarious. He does funny shit.
Yeah, he does some funny shit.
Like adopt a sphere and a wolf, and it's like he's not an asshole.
Yeah,
you know,
it's like he is an angry character, right? And I mean, he's a very young character. As he'll say, he's like, "What? I'm a year old." Like he makes a big joke out of it, but he's also like a character with high emotional intelligence, and like you see him develop that and become more mature throughout season 1, and then in season 2, he's almost like a counselor to a lot of the other characters.
He just ends up being like. Season. There's a plot line where. Was it in season 1 when he gets the Superman patches?
Yes, Lex Luthor gives him the patches that unlock all of his...
Yeah, it unlocks his powers. And he becomes stronger. And then, like, really after season 1, he doesn't really care about being stronger anymore.
Yeah.
Because at the end of season 1, Superman says he's going to mentor Superboy, and we don't get to see that at all. That's their last interaction until season 3. Like, they do not interact in season 2, and Superboy's plot arc just seems to be resolved.
Yeah.
For the most part. It becomes more about McGann... and his interactions with her, their relationship, which is really interesting and good. But
great.
It's like Superboy, the character he's resolved his plot, and they kind of completely stop having him be like the muscle guy, you know? He's just really doesn't really have a role in fights or anything. He's just kind of around.
He's just around. He's hanging.
Mostly to chastise McGann. Damn it, McGann. Stop mind controlling people. That was a great arc too.
Stop erasing people's brains. It's not okay.
Season 2 had such good shit. And they're setting up for season 4 now.
Season 2 had
gonna go. Because fucking Wally ain't dead, man. Wally's coming back.
Season 2 had Rebound Boy Lagan.
Rebound Boy Lagan.
Whose power is just big.
Yep. The most underdeveloped character where you're like, oh, Lagan. Like, because they introduced a new team in season 2 and you're like, oh, we're going to get to develop those characters. Like, Lagan, no.
Some of them.
He's just a rebound guy and he's worthless and you hate him at all points and then he's just gone when his influence over the plot has subsided. It's just like, all right, get Lagan out of here. Bye.
All right, bye. See ya.
Crack my neck. I gotta pee really bad.
Nice.
And we could talk about this probably forever.
We could probably talk for... I'm sure we've already gone on for close to an hour.
I almost want to say we should fucking do like a Q&A live stream for the people who care and just gush about Young Justice forever. Because, like, yeah, there's just so much to cover in so many episodes, and we didn't want to do a video on each season.
Yeah, just get it all. Overload you with a whole hour of miscellaneous Young Justice talk that you won't understand if you haven't watched the show.
But if you have seen the show, I hope you're enjoying this. And let us know what you thought about season 3. Let us know your excitement.
Let us know who your
favorite
unholy
waifus.
Trinity boy was. Was it Halo because of her fat ass?
Oh my god, that fat ass. It's like I want to like her because her ass is so fat, but like her personality is just terrible. God,
fat ass ain't
so
everything.
Fucking annoying. Fucking Fred Burger. Thank God they found a reason to get him out of the fucking team. Jesus Christ. God, that was a fucking crucible. Just 7 episodes of hell. We almost dropped it. We almost just stopped watching.
I was, like, real irritated.
Yeah, we were pissed. And so it was just, like, putting them on just to get through them. Just like, fuck, God, get through this shit. I know it's gotta get better, right? It's gotta get better.
It's gotta pick up.
There's no way it can go, like, 26 episodes. It'd be this bad the whole time. The writing in the beginning was so bad. But it turned around.
It did.
And, overall, good shit. Lots of fun.
Yeah.
Alright, we gotta end this video or it'll never end.
This is the video that never ends.
Yeah. I gotta pee.
Cool. You said that already.
Yeah. Okay.
Now people have had to listen to you say it twice.
Bye. I'm gonna go pee.